Today being Thanksgiving, I thought I would do a Thanksgiving history video and basically go over the history of Thanksgiving. So, without further ado, let's jump into the history of Thanksgiving. Prayers of thanks and special Thanksgiving ceremonies are common among almost all religions after harvests and at other times. The Thanksgiving holiday's history in North America is rooted in English traditions dating from Protestant Reformation. It also has aspects of a harvest festival, even though the harvest in New England occurs well before the late November date on which the modern Thanksgiving holiday is celebrated. In the English tradition, days of Thanksgiving and special Thanksgiving religious services became important during the English Reformation in the reign of Henry VII, and in reaction to the large number of religious holidays on the Catholic calendar. Before 1536, there were 95 church holidays plus 52 Sundays, when people were required to attend church and forego work and sometimes pay for expensive celebrations. The 1536 reforms reduced the number of church holidays to 27, but some Puritians wished to eliminate all church holidays, including Christmas and Easter. The holidays were to be replaced by specially called days of fasting or days of Thanksgiving, in response to events that the Puritians viewed as acts of special providence, unexpected disasters or threats of judgment from on high called for days of fasting. Special blessings viewed as coming from God called for days of Thanksgiving. For example, days of fasting were called on account of drought in 1611, floods in 1613, and plagues in 1604 and 1622. Days of Thanksgiving were called following the victory over the Spanish Armada in 1588 and following the deliverance of Queen Anne in 1705. An unusual annual day of Thanksgiving began in 1606, following the failure of the Gunpowder Plot in 1605 and developed into Guy Fawkes Day on November 5th in Canada. According to some historians, the first celebration of Thanksgiving in North America occurred during the 1578 voyage of Martin Frobisher from England in search of the Northwest Passage. Other researchers, however, state that there is no compelling narrative to the origins of the Canadian Thanksgiving Day. The origins of Canadian Thanksgiving are also sometimes traced to the French settlers who came to New France in the 17th century, who celebrated their successful harvests. The French settlers in the area typically had feasts at the end of the harvest season. They continued throughout the winter season, even sharing food with indigenous people of the area. As settlers arrived in Nova Scotia from New England after 1700, late autumn Thanksgiving celebrations became commonplace. New immigrants into the country, such as the Irish, Scottish, and Germans, also added their own traditions to the harvest celebrations. Most of the U.S. aspects of Thanksgiving, such as the turkey, were incorporated when United Empire Loyalists began to flee from the United States during the American Revolution and settled in Canada. In the United States, Pilgrims and Puritians who emigrated from England in the 1620s and 1630s carried the tradition of days of fasting and days of Thanksgiving with them to New England. The modern Thanksgiving holiday tradition is traced to a well-recorded 1619 event in Virginia and a sparsely documented 1621 celebration at Plymouth in present-day Massachusetts. The 1619 arrival of 38 English settlers at Berkeley Hundred in Charles City County, Virginia, concluded with a religious celebration as dictated by the group's charter from the London Company, which required that day of our ship's arrival at the place assigned. In the land of Virginia shall be yearly and perpetually kept holy as a day of thanksgiving to Almighty God. The 1621 Plymouth Feast and Thanksgiving was prompted by a good harvest. The Pilgrims celebrated this with Native Americans who have helped them get through the previous winter by giving them food in that time of scarcity. Several days of Thanksgiving were held in early New England history that have been identified as the first Thanksgiving, including Pilgrim holidays in Plymouth in 1621 and 1623, and a Persian holiday in Boston in 1631. According to historian Germany Banks, director of Leiden American Pilgrim Museum, the Pilgrims may have been influenced by watching the annual services of Thanksgiving for the relief of the siege of Leiden in 1574 while they were staying in Leiden. Now called Oktoberfest, Leiden's autumn Thanksgiving celebration in 1617 was the occasion of the sectarian disturbance that appears to have accelerated the Pilgrims' plans to immigrate to America. Later in Massachusetts, religious Thanksgiving services were declared by civil leaders such as Governor Bradford, who planned the colony's Thanksgiving celebrations and feast in 1623. In the late 1630s, the Pequot were blamed for the killing of a white man, leading to the colonizers burning down Pequot villages and killing those who did not perish in the fires. Hundreds of Pequots were killed, leading Governor Bradford to proclaim that Thanksgiving from then on would be celebrating the bloody victory, thanking God that the battle had been won. The practice of holding an annual harvest festival did not become a regular affair in New England until the 1660s. Thanksgiving proclamations were made mostly by church leaders in New England up until 1682, and then by both state and church leaders until after the American Revolution. During the Revolutionary period, political influences affected the issuance of Thanksgiving proclamations. Various proclamations were made by royal governors and conversely by patriot leaders such as John Hancock, General George Washington, and the Continental Congress, each giving thanks to God for events favorable to their causes. As President of the United States, George Washington proclaimed the first nationwide Thanksgiving celebration in America, marking November 26, 1789, as a day of public thanksgiving and prayer to be observed by acknowledging with grateful hearts the many and signal favors of Almighty God. Debate about the nation's first celebrations. The question of where the first Thanksgiving was held in the United States has been a subject of dispute primarily between New England and Virginia. The question is complicated by the concept of Thanksgiving as either a holiday celebration or a religious service. James Baker maintains the American holiday's true origin was the New England Calvinist Thanksgiving, never coupled with Sabbath, meaning the Persian observances where special days set aside during the week for Thanksgiving and praise in response to God's providence. Baker calls the debate a tempest in a bean pot and marvelous nonsense based on regional claims. However, the day for Thanksgiving services was specifically codified in the founding of Charter of Berkeley Hundred in 1619 was instrumental in President John F. Kennedy's attempt to strike a compromise between the regional claims by issuing Proclamation 3560 on November 5th, 1963, stating, "Over 3 centuries ago, our forefathers in Virginia and Massachusetts, far from home in a lonely wilderness, set aside a time of thanksgiving. On the appointed day, they gave reverent thanks for their safety, for the health of their children, for their fertility of their fields, for the love of which bound them together, and for the faith which united them with their God." Other claims include an earlier religious service by Spanish explorers in Texas and San Isidro in 1598. Historians Robin Joya and Michael Gannon of the University of Florida argue that the earliest Thanksgiving service in what is now the United States was celebrated by the Spanish community on September 8, 1565 in current St. Augustine, Florida. Fixing a date. Canada. The earlier Thanksgiving celebrations in Canada has been attributed to the earlier onset of winter in the north, thus ending the harvest season earlier. Thanksgiving in Canada did not have a fixed date until the 19th century. Prior to Canadian Confederation, many of the individual colonial governors of the Canadian provinces had declared their own days of Thanksgiving. The first official Canadian Thanksgiving occurred on April 15, 1872, when the nation was celebrating the Prince of Wales' recovery from a serious illness. By the end of the 19th century, Thanksgiving Day was normally celebrated on November 6. In the late 19th century, the militia staged sham battles for public entertainment on Thanksgiving Day. The militia agitated for an earlier date for the holiday so they could use the warmer weather to draw bigger crowds. However, when World War I ended, the Armistice Day holiday was usually held during the same week. To prevent the two holidays from clashing with one another, in 1957, the Canadian Parliament proclaimed Thanksgiving to be observed on its present date, on the second Monday of October, United States. Thanksgiving in the United States has been observed on differing dates. From the time of the Founding Fathers until the time of Lincoln, the date of observance varied from state to state. The final Thursday in November had become the customary date in most U.S. states by the beginning of the 19th century, coinciding with and eventually superseding the holiday of Evacuation Day, commemorating the day of the British exited the United States after the Revolutionary War. Modern Thanksgiving was proclaimed for all states in 1863 by Abraham Lincoln, influenced by Sarah Josephiah Hale, who wrote letters to politicians for approximately 40 years advocating an official holiday. Lincoln set National Thanksgiving by proclamation for the final Thursday in November, explicitly in celebration of the bounties that had continued to fall on the Union and for the military success in the war, and also explicitly in humble penitence for our national preservances and disobedience. Because of the ongoing Civil War, a nationwide Thanksgiving celebration was not realized until Reconstruction was completed in the 1870s. On October 31st, 1939, President Franklin D. Roosevelt signed a presidential proclamation changing the holiday to the next last Thursday in November for business reasons. On December 26, 1941, he signed a joint resolution of Congress changing the National Thanksgiving Day to the fourth Thursday in November. Since 1971, when the American Uniform Monday Holiday Act took effect, the American observance of Columbus Day had coincided with the Canadian observance of Thanksgiving. And there's the history of Thanksgiving. I decided I would do a little bit of a bonus video because I kind of wanted to do a little bit of a Thanksgiving themed video since that today is Thanksgiving. If you are watching this on October 11th, that is. October 11th is Thanksgiving. So if you're watching this on October 11th, you're basically watching this on Thanksgiving. And once again, just thought I would do this quick bonus video for you guys and basically go over the history of Thanksgiving. And who knows, maybe I'll do more videos like this in the future. But until then, I will see you guys in the next one. Goodbye.